All right, so SageMaker Ground Truth is a fully managed data labeling service that makes it easy to build highly accurate training data sets for machine learning. So here's kind of a visual as how it might work, but the idea is that you have this workforce that is working with your data to label it. Let's talk about the input manifest file. So you would have to place this into your S3 bucket. It would have to have .manifest on it. And one trip that you might have with it is if you do not have cores enabled on the bucket, or your data is not present, or it's not properly formatted, or you don't select the appropriate data types for your data, or your bucket is not in the same region as your labeling job. So just make sure all those things are set up correctly. But yeah, you'd go ahead and set that up. And again, you could run into issues. You manually create your manifest file. Each line of input in the manifest file is a JSON object. So this is basically a JSON-L file. Input data in manifest file must be stored in S3. You must give SageMaker access to the data stored in S3 bucket so that it can read it. The manifest file must be in the same AWS region, labeling job. It must be in UTF-8 encoding format. You can see there's a lot of requirements here for these files, but each line is delimited by a standard line break. You can't have unscaped line break characters. Each JSON object cannot be larger than 100,000 characters. No single attribute within an object can be larger than 20,000 characters. Attribute names can't start with a $sign. The JSON object must contain either a source or source reference. So source reference would be a key for binary data, and source is just for text data. Continuing on, so the supported data formats for the input manifest file is images, texts, video, video frames and video frame sequences for object tracking, supports video frames, sequence files. We have point clouds and point cloud sequence files. So here we have things like binary pack format or ASCII, and then obviously for sequence file JSON. Let's talk about cores for a moment. So cores is a mechanism that allows restricted resources on a web page to request from another domain outside of the domain which the first resource was served. Okay. Another thing here is that we have ground truth and the cores image orientation issue. So cores configuration S3 bucket containing an input data of ground truth is required. Cores needs to be enabled because the labeling images in some browsers show images in wrong orientation. So in order to rotate the image to correct the orientation, cores must be enabled. If you create a job through ground truth console, cores is enabled by default. If all of your input data is not located in the same S3 bucket as your input manifest file, you must add cores configuration to the S3 bucket that contains input data. Under your permissions tab in your S3 bucket, you can configure cores. Cores is kind of a pain, but it's not too hard to set it up for ground truth. And SageMaker Ground Truth has various task templates to choose from. When you choose one, you have images, text, video, point cloud, and you'll get an easy WYSIWYG to describe the image because remember, somebody's going to be labeling this, so you have to have an interface for them to do that. When you choose custom, you can provide a custom HTML-like template so that, when somebody is labeling the data, they can see what they're doing. So here we have image classification. We have multi-label. These are just templates that you can utilize for labeling. We have bounding box, semantic segmentation, label verification, okay, for labeling text. We have text classification, so choosing whether something is positive or negative as an example. Multi-label, named entity recognition. We also have stuff for video clips. We have stuff for object detection with bounding boxes, polygons, polylines, key point. We have bounding box, like this is for video object tracking. So bounding box, polygon, polyline, key point, as you can see there. Then we have point cloud. So what is point cloud? Point cloud is a set of data points in space. Point clouds are generally produced by 3D scanners, which are pretty high tech. And so, you have that information there. You can also do custom labeling for your data set. AWS provides many template examples for custom. So we have text, we have stuff for images, we have stuff for video and custom and audio. So a lot of stuff. And these ones are really interesting to see. When you have custom labeling, you're using the liquid templating format. So that's how you're building it. It has some pre-built web components. With custom labeling, you can set pre and post labeling tasks via AWS Lambda. The pre-built components for custom labeling is called Crowd HTML. So it has around 30 built-in components. There might be more now, but there's a lot. So here's an example of the slider component that you could put in your HTML template. When you create a labeling job, you need to assign a workforce. You can have up to 3 options. The Amazon team, Amazon Mechanical Turk, you're paying for this. They're a 24/7 hour workforce of 500,000 independent contractors. You can do private, so this is your own team. You can get a vendor managed one. Let's talk about the private workforce. So for a private workforce, you create private teams, and then they have to connect to it. You send them emails, okay? You can see if it's in progress, right? Whether they're doing the job or not. Your workforce will log into Ground Truth UI and will be tasked with a label, the content. So there's the interface of them labeling, is this the traveler, not the traveler? It's an example of a joke. But, just remember, SageMaker Ground Truth is basically a service to automate labeling with real people, okay? So there you go.